Hey everyone, it's Shoja Greerwan. You're listening to another great pod by the Cleveland Sports Collective.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Cleveland Sports Collective podcast series. I'm Tom Moore, and my co-host is Josh Brickner. The Cleveland Browns found their bad weather mojo on Sunday as they defeated the Houston Texans amid a blustery day at First Energy Stadium. It wasn't always pretty, but the defense held the Texans to just 7 points. The offense did enough, and the Browns closed out the day at 6-3 and still very much in the playoff race in the AFC. So how's it going, Josh?
Going well. Enjoyed my bye week, took a little vacation, so back ready to roll. Glad to see the Browns, were productive during the bye week. I know they said they did a lot of self-scouting, and it definitely paid off on Sunday. So I'm excited to talk about the victory.
So, all right. We will start off with a couple of very brief items on the Sendejo list for this week. Sendejo's still picking himself up off the turf after getting trucked over by Duke Johnson. And I honestly fear for him when they face Derrick Henry in a few weeks.
Yeah, and I'm glad it was a no call, but he was close to getting a pass interference on Brandon Cooks there, and that could have changed the game too, because that was after Deshaun Watson scrambled for avoided the sack of Redwine, I believe, and scrambled for the first down. So I'm glad they didn't call it, but it was sure close, and I'm surprised that's the only time they could get Cooks matched up against Sendejo, because that's a mismatch, and in a better weather game they could have exploited, but. So, yeah, Andrew Sendejo will always be on the one day I'd love to put him in the positive section, and we'll change the name of the list. But when you get trucked by Duke Johnson and, you were close to getting a pass interference call in the end zone on Brandon Cooks, the namesake of the list continues.
So first up on that list is Donovan Peoples-Jones. Things were looking bad after Houston scored its touchdown, cut the Browns lead to 10-7 with 5 minutes to go in the game. Then on the kickoff, DPJ muffs the kickoff and before recovering at his own 2-yard line. Thankfully, the Browns were able to close out the game from there, but it kind of seems like every week Peoples-Jones is making some kind of mistake in the return game, and if they can't figure out a way to clean that up, at some point it's going to cost the Browns here before the season's over.
Absolutely. That could have been if we go 3 and out there, we're giving them the ball. It could be on our their side of the 50, our side of the 50. So it's the offensive line and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb at the end stepped up. But yeah, that's a disastrous play. We talked about it in the Dallas game where he kind of watched that ball go into the end zone, could have been recovered. It's just, you got to make better plays than that. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I thought he might have a little more juice back there. He doesn't seem to have that top end speed that you'd want in your return guy.
He doesn't seem to be very explosive.
Right. No, he doesn't have that explosion that you'd want in a return guy. Yeah, because it seems like he can't beat guys to the edge on punt returns. And I don't know if that position's for him. I think he needs to. He filled in. He made a couple big plays, in that Cincinnati game. So as a depth receiver, I think that's his role in this team. I don't know if the return game is, in college, sure, but I just don't think he has that kind of NFL explosion that you would want.
Right. They're definitely, missing JoJo Nats in there.
Yes.
But if that's not going to be the case, for me, all I want out of my returners is if you're in the end zone on the kickoff, down it. Right. Don't bring it out. And if you're back there on the punt return team, catch the ball. Yeah. That secure the ball. If you get any yardage, that's almost a bonus at this point. But he can't have those kind of mistakes because he doesn't have that other element in his game to make up for that.
Correct. Yes, so we need to find maybe a more reliable returner, because that's, again, this one obviously hurt us more than that Dallas one where luckily what in the end zone was a touchback. So we need to find somebody who's more, doesn't make us hold our breath when it's special teams time. So hopefully that's something they'll either figure out this week in practice, if there is practice, given the COVID state that, the facility shutdown we'll talk about later. But yeah, that's something that needs improved. And one thing I didn't add to the list for the Sendejo list, and they were actually 2 pretty critical plays, are the 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties that we got. I believe Harrison, WWE, wrestling slamming down. I forget which receiver it was.
Receiver. That was Mac Wilson.
Yeah,
who
that
got
was
a call for that. That was
it was Mac Wilson.
Yeah, that was a BS call. He didn't. It
he
looked
didn't do
worse
it
than it was.
He didn't do it maliciously, correct? But that was Mac. Yeah, but he didn't do it maliciously. But the one that really killed us, and I know he was fired up, it was Jarvis Landry's taunting call, because that kind of, if I'm wrong, that drive kind of got stopped in its tracks there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that kind of shortchanged that one.
Right.
But, we've seen this over the years. We've seen the Steelers do 10 times worse and not get a flag thrown on them for what Wilson did. And I do think it'll be interesting to see if, when Friday rolls around, if he gets an additional fine for that, or if the league kind of realizes that, it really wasn't that bad. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have done it. But, the guy was picked up. He sort of just, it was one of those things that looked bad, but when you saw the replay, it really wasn't that bad.
That's true. It just said, that was on that touchdown drive, so it ended up costing us. And I guess if you have to put one thing on the defense on this Neho list, Deshaun Watson's a great player, but wrap a guy up, especially you got to wrap him up high. It seemed like on that great play Watson made where Harrison had a hold of his lower body, and he still was able to get that throw. If he just wraps him up higher, easier said than done on an athletic specimen like Deshaun Watson. But that would be my one negative for the defense. And obviously, Jarvis, he was fired up, but he's gotten called for that penalty a few times. So I love Jarvis Landry, but that was a tough one.
All right, and then we're going to get the little added bonus, little added value here. This might only be interesting to me. I don't know. But, when on the DPJ thing, everybody talks about a muffed kick, and we all know what a muffed kick is. They don't actually have possession. It's not a fumble. But I started thinking about that. That's this term that constantly get used on broadcasts. But it's like, why is it a muff? Why are we calling it a muff? So I actually looked it up. And according to Merriam-Webster, the verb muff was first used in English writing in the early 1800s, and it referred to awkwardly handling something. So that kind of makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
First sports use was in cricket because people would complain about players who muffed their batting. Sports use took off from there, and it was applied to golf, baseball, and finally it was applied to football. The verb has broadened in meaning over the years and now refers to messing something up, just in general. And as far as like why the actual word muff, it may have a connection to the tubular muff that people wear, or maybe it's weird. I don't know. Do people still wear muffs to keep their hands warm?
Yeah, I don't think they're called. They would be muffs. I guess
they're not fanny.
They're hand warmers. No, they're not. I guess quarterbacks have the hand warmers. I guess, is that technically a muff?
I don't know. So I'm just wondering. But so when people wear them, it kept their hands warm, but your hands were inaccessible. So because they were in the muff, so anything trying to handle anything made it very awkward to do that. So there you go. As the old thing said when we were kids, the more you know. Now everyone knows why they call it a muff.
Absolutely. Hey, we don't not only give you a Browns breakdown here, but we're teaching a little something about the English language. So,
and now that we've lost every listener who's tuned out because they're like, "What the heck are you talking about?" What are you going to talk about? A merkin next? So maybe that'll be for next week. So the other negative that got highlighted on the list was Baker Mayfield's accuracy. I think it was kind of hard to just really know how much the weather was impacting him and how much this was Baker falling back on some of his bad habits.
Yeah, see, I put it on there, and I understand a few throws that sailed on him because it was just a crazy blustery day. But it was the ones that he threw behind his receivers, and a lot of them made good adjustments to catch them. I think the one that was really was third down past to Kareem Hunt, where Hunt tried to make the play, but that one was rough. Yeah, if he leads him in stride, he could have been running for 20, 30 yards. So there's a few, and I want to say there's one to Landry, and there's
that deep one to Landry was really the one that I kind of highlighted. That's that one that you really wish, obviously, they'd been able to connect on. But
and the ones that sail, I did, but it's the ones that were behind guys that was because those were short throws, so you wouldn't think the wind, So that was my issue. I mean, and we can get to it. Baker was 12 for 20, 60%. It would be 79 if you took batted passes and 2 throwaways. So, he played decent, and we can transition to positive list. He really made the plays he had to. Was it the 3rd and 18 pass to Higgins? And then the 3rd down pass to Landry, even though he had the penalty, we were backed up on our own end. So he made the plays he had to. But obviously, he didn't play great, but he made, like I said, he made those 2 plays that he really had to. So obviously the strength of this defense is the running game. So I would just say he didn't have his best game, but he made the plays that we needed to win. So that's a plus in my book.
And I wouldn't necessarily call it a negative, but one thing that I really was kind of surprised about when I went back and looked at the box score was that, Mayfield only targeted the tight ends twice all game. Both passes went to Austin Hooper. He caught 1 pass for 11 yards. And with the way the weather was on Sunday, I really thought that the tight ends would have really been a bigger part of the game plan. So to me, like I said, not a negative, but just something that was more kind of like, you look at that, it's like, wow, I didn't think that would actually, he would have worked the running backs and the tight ends much more with that short passing game. But 2 targets to the tight end was not something you would really expect to see, especially with all the hype coming into the season about how Stefanski loves using tight ends.
Yeah, it seems like the games he used that we targeted the tight ends more was when Hooper didn't play in Cincinnati. So, I really love to see Austin Hooper start him in a few fantasy leagues, thinking, this was the game for him. So, he's there. He seems to accept his role. So, it's something that, as we run more play action and hopefully better weather. But obviously, we know around here that, that kind of weather, minus the 50-mile-an-hour winds ripping trees out of the ground, the windy cold is pretty much our new normal for the next 3-4 months. So I think we can expect, air raid games, which I know we're not going to do anyways. But I just think, ball control, play action, that's our offensive identity.
So, all right, we're going to move on to the positives, but we're going to stay with Baker.
Yep.
He did not turn the ball over.
Right.
He only had 1 sack. And on a day where the Browns defense didn't force any turnovers, Baker protecting the ball, I think, was really key. So right. I'm going to say gold star to Baker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think when we put Baker on the Sendejo list, then it's going to be because of his interceptions and turnovers, which you're right. In a 10-7 game like that, where, both offenses are struggling a little bit and the defenses are, kind of using the weather to their advantage, it's important that you're not giving short fields to the other team, especially when your defense, doesn't have takeaways. I believe, if I saw it correctly, this was the first game we won where we didn't have any turnovers. Is that correct? Or not? Or do we not get any in Cincinnati either? No, we got a interception in the end zone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this would be the first game that we won without any turnovers. So
I believe that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's Baker, that people want to say he's a game manager, which that's what we need on Sunday, and that's fine. I don't care how pretty it is. I just want to win. When we've gone 18 years, 17 years without making the playoffs, I don't need to win pretty. I just need to win. So that's all that matters.
Exactly. I mean,
Yep.
just if they, coming out, if they had somehow laid an egg the way they did against the Raiders,
Yes.
it would have been a lot different feeling. But now they're really set up here for the next few weeks, and what's really going to be a nice, interesting and fun ride for the last 7 weeks of the season, which we'll get to here in a few minutes.
Yes,
So continuing on the positive list, we got Myles Garrett. It probably was not his most overly dynamic game necessarily,
right.
but he still had his impact play when he tackled, Deshaun Watson on the 4th down draw play from the 2-yard line. That was,
Yep.
I mean, you could argue outside of Chubb's run, that was the play of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Myles Garrett, you're right. Even when he's not, getting 3-4 sacks, a couple strip sacks, he's still making the plays to help us win. And it's good to see the other defense play better. So he wasn't doing it in the South, where in Cincinnati, if he doesn't get a strip sack or a sack, then they're just going to, pass for 400 yards. So it was really good to see the rest of the defense step up. But Myles Garrett is, like I said, I said every week, the best defensive player in the league. And I hope he gets recognized as so by his peers come the end of the season if he keeps playing like this. I believe, how many sacks does he have on the year now? Is he at
9.5?
9.5. So yeah, that's and what's the team record for sacks? He's closing in on that, isn't he?
Yeah, it is. And I
13,
should know off the top of my head because it's Reggie Camp with the unofficial one, because they didn't start keeping official sacks as an official record. I think it's 14 by Reggie Camp in 1984.
Nice.
So he's, I mean,
closing in, yeah, right.
Yeah, we're not going to say unless something.
Yeah, we won't.
happens.
Yeah, we're not going to. Yeah,
because we had that discussion at this point last year.
Yeah, don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Yes.
So, but yeah, it's definitely well. I mean,
Right.
he should blow past that here in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
If everything, goes well.
And defensive scheme against him, and we can kind of transition to other defense. I'm looking at some of the PFF grades, and Vincent Taylor had an 80. I know he didn't play that many snaps, but had an 82. PFF grade, and Ogunjobi was 71. So he's opening up opportunities for the rest of the defense as well. So I think when he gets so much attention, that's just going to open up, plays to be made for the rest of the defensive line and the linebacker. So it's good to see. He's always going to have an impact, and he's probably one of probably if not the best, our best first round pick since of the last 20 years. Easy.
And overall, the defense was good enough.
Yeah.
I think, they still allowed the Texans to go 7 of 14 on third down, a little bit higher, but they only gave up 90 rushing yards. They only gave up 7 points. They didn't really, the weather obviously helped them as much as it helped the Houston defense, but, they did a good job of keeping things under control, I think.
They did, and it was good to see. I mean, 90 yards rushing is, but of course, Ndejo got trucked over. But it wasn't just the domination where it seemed like the Raiders could run at will on us 2 weeks ago, and it's good to see them, kind of take that a little personally and show up and really, and I think Joe Woods had a really good plan. They did a lot of self scouting over the bye week, and so far the returns are good. We'll see how it goes against our buddy Carson Wentz, who never forgets that we traded the draft pick and didn't take him. We'll see how it is on Sunday, but so far so good for the defense, and I will happily eat some crow for my rant 2 weeks ago about us not trading for any defensive players. So I hope the defense keeps proving me wrong, and I'll happily eat crow every week if they have a strong performance that helps us win. I will happily serve it up every week. I'll take it.
So speaking of running people over, we're going to talk about what a huge difference the return of Nick Chubb made to the offense. I'm going to bundle him in with Kareem Hunt because they combined for 230 rushing yards, which made them the first pair of Browns running backs to both rush for more than 100 yards in a single game since Leroy Kelly and Ernie Green did it against the Steelers in 1966. In what's probably going to be the biggest understatement we're going to make here during our time together, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty strong. So breaking down some more, Hunt and Chubb combined for 7 explosive runs of 10 yards or more. Hunt had 6 avoided tackles on runs and receptions. It's great to have, especially because, and this is, I know we said this, I think, at the Washington game. I think coming into at halftime, we were only averaging under 3 yards a carry. So it was good to see, where some coach in the past would panic and, oh, now we better start passing the ball or we'd abandon the run game. I know the weather kind of helped with that, but it's great that we stuck to it, and it really paid dividends in the fourth quarter when, we kind of wore down their defense. And that's when we saw Chubb and Hunt just really explode for their big gains. And I think we had 150 some rushing yards in the fourth quarter, 158 if I saw correctly.
It could be.
Yeah, I know we had a lot of those in the fourth quarter, and it shouldn't be understated. I know if you play fantasy football, I do, but the team I had trouble and already won, so I didn't care. Or if you gamble, which I don't, only when I'm in Vegas, Chubb stepping out of bounds was not what you wanted to see, but it was such a smart play because I'll never forget that 2001 game where the Browns had a 14-point lead with 30 seconds left and ended up losing the game in overtime. So it wasn't likely that the Texans were going to score 10 points, but they could have. And by going out of bounds, all we had to do is take a couple of knees and the game's over. So such a smart, selfless play that, Nick Chubb makes. And I know we kind of mentioned it offline. He's due for an extension. And if Zeke Elliott's going to get, a big extent, I'd love to see. I mean, Chubb, I want to say he might give us a team discount, but I think he's the guy you need to lock up long-term immediately. So that's just my opinion, but.
Okay. So that's actually, we'll go a little bit more in depth with that here in a moment. So obviously since the game, it's been talked about for a while, but it really kicked in the past couple of days that, is it time to talk about a contract extension for Chubb after this season? He has 1 year left on his contract, so any extension is not going to kick in until 2022. And I was thinking about it. So if the Browns were to work out some kind of extension or want to extend him, no matter what the reports come out about years, dollars, blah, 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 the reality is that most of the money in these contracts comes due in the first 3 years.
Correct.
So we're really talking about a 3-year contract extension. So take that into consideration. You give an extension to Chubb, that would take him through his age 29 season in terms of salary cap impact. Teams have shied away from putting money in the running back position, but could the Browns make an exception with Chubb? And more importantly, should they?
There's two parts of this. I love Nick Chubb, the player, and I think at talent-wise, he might be the best running back, at least top 3. He's at least top 3 in the NFL. And I love that he has a team-first attitude. I love watching Billy and the Browns where when I think it was super like, does Chubb ever smile? And Kareem Hunt's like, nah. He never does. I mean, he just comes to work. He wants to win. He wants to do his job. So that part of me says you need guys like that. Give him whatever. I don't say whatever he wants, but give him an extension. On the other side of me says running back's the most analytics-wise is the most replaceable position on the field. And teams have really gotten themselves in some salary cap hell by, AKA Dallas, by giving too much money to running backs who honestly, in Zeke's case, looked like they were their best in college. And also Chubb has a pretty extensive injury history dating back to college. So that has to be taken into consideration. I would do it personally. Like I said, front load the first 2 to 3 years. That's what they always do. I would do it. I think he still has a couple good years left in him, but I would do it. Yes. Even though there's risk, I think it's one of those things you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of data out there that, shows that running backs start to decline after a certain age, but, just kind of thinking 27, 28, 29, that's not that old. And he's going to have some wear and tear on him, but I don't know. I haven't looked at, obviously his carries are going to be down. His carries were down his rookie year because he didn't really start for those first 5-6 weeks of the season.
Thanks Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley, but yes.
So that ends up being a little bit of a bonus. You don't want to lose him for 4 weeks this year, but that's 4 games that he wasn't out there. So his carries are not going to build up that much, and it's going to be an interesting discussion when they get to that point. But he could be the exception. If the extension was going to take him into his 30s, maybe you don't do it. But it's hard right now to think, well, he's not going to be productive in 22, 23, 2024. And then, all of a sudden it's like, okay, now he's heading into his age 30 season. Most of the upfront money, the salary cap hit from his extension is gone. You can either then transition your new guy in and keep him around for a 4th year, or, then you can kind of move on from him. But it's, sitting here today, you can see both sides, but it's hard to imagine a year from now us talking about there's only 6 or 7 games left in Nick Chubb's career as a Brown.
Right. And I think it would cost you more. I would say it costs you more if he finishes this season strong, starts off next season strong, it's going to cost you a lot more than if you do it this off season. So I think it would behoove them to do what we said and do a 2 to 3 year contract for the next, make most of the cap money is spendable, coming off those first 3 years. So I would say they should do it because it's going to cost them more in the long run if, hopefully stays healthy and keeps on the current path than it will if they let his contract play out, and we're talking about this a year from now.
And they're going to pay something. I mean, they got to pay somebody,
right?
I mean, they're going to pay Baker,
right?
They're going to pay. They already paid Garrett. They're going to pay Ward. They're not going to pay any of the linebackers.
No,
there's nobody on the defensive line other than Ogunjobi that's probably going to, deserve. And he's not going to be a huge, burden on the salary cap. You're going to have to keep turning your offensive line guys over, but those numbers all seem pretty manageable.
Right.
So we'll see where that goes.
And this is kind of getting the weeds, but I could see where we do kind of like a Panthers draft, and the majority of our draft is on the defense side of the football. Because let's be honest, that's where we need the most impactful players outside of a couple positions.
I mean, who else? Who else are you going to draft? I mean,
you're
probably not going to draft wide receivers unless you do it late.
Right.
You're not going to draft any offensive linemen unless you do it late. They're not taking another offensive lineman in the first round. They don't need any running backs. They don't need any tight ends.
Right.
So it's going to be, you may as well don't even watch offense. For what's left of the college football season, just don't even bother to watch the offense. Just watch and, kind of pay attention to what's going on the other side of the ball.
So it would, and you're correct. Yeah, we got to pay somebody. What I'll be interested to see what they do with Baker, and that's something we can hopefully we're talking about in January once a playoff run. Knock on wood if we would make the playoffs, but that's an interesting question they have because his 2021 option is up this. They have to decide this offseason, correct?
Right, by May. By May they'll pick up his 5th year.
By May, yeah. Which you would think they would because of how, but it's interesting. I mean, that's a whole different conversation. We could get in the weeds on that forever. So, we'll save it. 6-3 playoffs. Hopefully, that's what we're going to talk about. So,
and so sticking with the running game, we do need to talk a little bit about the offensive line. No disrespect to Chris Hubbard, and we're going to get to him here in a minute, but the return of right guard Wyatt Teller may have had as much of an impact on the offense, especially the running game, as Chubb's return.
Right. Oh,
the dude is just freaking good.
I mean, he's the work he put in to improve, and I know he gives a lot of credit to Bill Callahan for pushing him, is monumental. Let's see, his first game back rates out at 96.4 PFF. It's just fantastic. And then good to see Jack Conklin 87.4, Batonio 81.1, Wills 74.7. He rebounded definitely after that. And it was good to see. I mean, JJ Watt had a little bit of an impact, but that was a game where if Wills comes in and is doubting himself, things could have gotten ugly there. So it was good to see everyone step up. Treader only had 62.6 PFF grade, but still, I would say a lot of that came from that fumbled snap. Was that on Baker? Was that, they didn't really say.
It was really hard to tell.
Yeah,
I think I read Baker said, he took responsibility for it because I think what was his explanation? He thought the timer was running out, so he yelled for the snap early or something happened. Thankfully, he was able to recover it, and they got screwed on the
because Landry was in the area.
Yeah,
right. Landry's so it doesn't have to get the line of scrimmage, right?
Yeah, the intentional grounding call was bogus, but luckily they were able to overcome that.
At least
and Wills has been interesting. I know he's struggled at times during the year, but his struggles have been, I don't want to say quiet, but it's not like you don't walk out of the game at 4:00 rolls around on Sunday, and it's not like, oh my God, what are they going to do with him? It's like, okay, he's fine. He might have had a rough play here or there, but he's fine. I don't
absolutely, yeah. No,
it's really been kind of strange.
Yeah, he's been solid, and I think you got to take into account switching positions. I know he was protecting to his blind side, but it's such a different animal playing left tackle opposed to right tackle. So you got to think he's making that switch. And yeah, I've liked what I've seen. He had the rough game against the Raiders. Obviously, it was not his best game, but he's been solid. And I think you have to think he's going to get better. So I really, I like the pick. It's a great pick so far. And you're right. I think as a left tackle, you don't want to be, right. If we were talking about him, it would not be on the positive side usually if he was sticking out to us. So the fact that he's you're right, being a kind of quiet, stable presence there is important. And what Baker was sacked one time. So, and I think it was from the right side anyways. So it was good to see. And JJ Watt wasn't living in the backfield, which let's be honest, JJ Watt can do if he's not blocked up. So good. So Conklin and Wills kind of took care of him.
And since you brought up Tua, how good did the Dolphins look? They basically tanked for him. They end up not having to make any move because he falls to them because Washington, screws up and says, we don't need the guy who was probably one of the best quarterbacks, the guy who would have been the number one pick if he hadn't, gotten hurt because, hey, we got Dwayne Haskins. We don't need a quarterback. And so the Dolphins just having fault to him without them having to do anything outside the ordinary. And now all of a sudden, he's got it clicking and going, which is bad for the Browns at the moment.
It's terrible.
But, but maybe they can catch and they can overtake the Bills and then, the Bills stumble a bit. And then we don't have to worry about the Dolphins. We can focus on, what kind of tiebreakers the Browns have with the Bills.
Oh, I was watching that because I was in Florida and watching that Miami Cardinals game after doing some stuff over on last Sunday, and I was just rooting to death for the Cardinals, and it killed me because I know, I mean, the Dolphins and of course the Raiders have that leg up on us after beating us. So it's going to be a competitive wild card race in the AFC. So we just got to take care of our business and win the games we can win. I'd love to see us give Tennessee a run. I don't know if that's possible, but I think Tennessee, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, or the rest of the games, the other 4 of the 7, we should win. So if we do that, we'll put ourselves in a good position to break that playoff drought, and that's all we can do. And I like to see Tua succeeding because that injury was horrific and could have wiped him out. So it's good to see him, but it's not good to see the Dolphins, competing with us for that playoff spot.
Right. So I think unfortunately, we need to mention COVID.
Yes.
I know everybody's got COVID fatigue, but as it relates to the Browns, they were extremely fortunate the past few days, because first Hubbard, and then on Friday, and then fullback Andy Janovich yesterday landed on the reserve COVID-19 list. And my first thought when both the news came out on both those players were, hopefully they'll be okay. But
Right.
that was quickly followed by, holy crap, what are the Browns going to do if Hubbard wipes out the entire offensive line? Or what are they going to do if Janovich wipes out the whole running back room?
Right.
Thank goodness that was not the case. I know the Browns came out today and said that contact tracing revealed that there were no close contacts in either case. So nobody else apparently right now looks like they're going to have to miss practice. Looks like they're going to be able to, at least get back to some semblance of normal. But, welcome to life in the NFL in 2020.
It's scary because, you think, Janovich played a decent amount of snaps. Yeah, I think he's in the huddle, and you're right. I'm glad that Hubbard and, he filled in admirably when Teller was out, and Janovich is a big piece. But yeah, and I think they've put in protections most teams have to where they're not, Janovich is going to take out Chubb, Hunt, Dearness. He's not going to take them off one fell swoop. I know they sit far apart in the meeting rooms, and I know that they've taken the precautions. And knock on wood, they seem to be working so far. So,
yeah, and I'm actually, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just hopefully we keep getting positive news from this, because I even know last week Baker was what he had sat next to. He was in the COVID protocol himself. He was a close contact, with the staff member. Yeah, so it only takes, and especially with so many asymptomatic people, that's really obviously if somebody's coughing, they'll be like, get the heck out of here, go get a test and leave. But it's the asymptomatic people that they're being tested every day, every other day, that you're going to catch these positives, and then it's kind of like a domino effect. So it's good. Hopefully everyone, that gets sick is on the mend, and things are kind of tough in Ohio right now, COVID wise, but it's good. It's good to see the Browns, it's good to see that their system they have in place, they're following the protocols, and it's not becoming a team-wide outbreak, or nobody's out at a charity fundraiser without a mask and indoors, I love Darren Waller and the Las Vegas Raiders. So.
Right. And, like you said, they can control access, and they can control spacing and everything when they're in meeting rooms, when they're on the practice field. I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought going into the season that we might see more teams kind of experiment a little bit with the way they huddle, just to, space guys out. But it seems like most teams are still using a conventional huddle. And I find that a little bit interesting at times, that you wouldn't come up with a way to somehow signal the plays where you could at least, space out a little bit more, but not having crowd noise too, that could play into it as well. Cause if you're yelling out the play, that doesn't necessarily work as well. But that was a little surprising cause I know one thing people talked about was like, well, he was in the huddle, and it's like, well, if I'm standing next to the guy in the huddle for the 20 seconds,
2 seconds,
to play, I'm not getting enough droplets, because
I think that's the big issue. Yeah, there's not enough. You need a lot more viral load, I think, to transmit it. So yeah, you would think just in the huddle. And Baker's the only one doing the talking. So yeah, if Baker would positive, then we could all be concerned, because obviously he's the one that's doing most of talking in the huddle. So yeah, and with the no crowd noise, and I just find it hilarious when they, the person who does the censoring is definitely getting a workout in some of these games, because you can definitely and sometimes they slip through now that there's no crowd noise. That's what I've noticed in the COVID era of all these sports. So it's interesting.
Yeah, somehow there's no mics to pick up
a certain
other
slurs,
incident,
yes.
but all of a sudden every mic, every little grunt, every little crap, every little MF is
Right.
all of a sudden broadcast everywhere. It's like, how'd that happen? That's pretty convenient.
It's very interesting. Yes, I don't like to be a conspiracy guy, but this isn't last year. We don't want to. One day, if we want to do a odds and ends the end of the year, we can go in a big conspiracy about all that. But yes, I've heard lots of F words that some get cut off and a few slip by in this COVID era that makes you wonder how in a Thursday night primetime game there's not a lot of mics. But anyways, as we move on,
exactly.
And it was good to see our good friend Uncle Romeo on the other sideline, because he made some questionable decisions in that our last thing on the positive list. He made some questionable decisions that really benefited the Browns and killed the Texans. The first was, and being our coach, I'm not sure, and even strategically, they deferred and he decided to go towards the dog pound in the second and fourth quarter. That's the worst end of the stadium to kick on. So I don't know. I'm not sure why he decided to do that. I mean, that didn't, I guess, end up costing too much. They missed the field goal, I believe, on the other end in the third quarter. But his two wasted timeouts in true Romeo Crennel fashion and indecisiveness are really what killed him at the end of the game. Because I believe he wasted the first timeout when the Browns were trying to get him, it was like 4th and 4, and the Browns were trying to drive him off sides. And obviously everyone knows that's what they're trying to do. So the Browns probably would have taken a penalty and kicked. So I don't know why he needed a timeout there. And then the huge one was when they wanted to go for it on 4th down, decided not to. It was like 4th and 2. That's when they missed that field goal. So those two timeouts would have been huge. Obviously, if they had them later in the game, it could have changed. You know what I mean? It could have changed everything. So it's. I'm glad Stefanski outcoached Romeo Crennel, and I like what I see from Stefanski so far, and it's good to see that he's at least a better head coach on game day than Romeo Crennel. So that's all I can say. I just kind of wanted to put that on there because it was something I said late in the game to my wife. Good to see Uncle Romeo wasting those timeouts to our advantage. So.
I don't know. I felt a little bad. I was a little worried for him. The dude's 73 years old. He's out there. The wind, it's cold. There's hail. The wind's whipping 50 miles an hour. He doesn't have a hat on.
Right.
And dude, put a beanie on, put something on, put your hood up. I can't imagine being 73 years old and being out there coaching an NFL team.
Yeah, like I said, nice guy, knows football, knows his defense, but as far as a head coach, he doesn't have it. So
of course, then you look, I can't imagine being Charlie Watts and being 79 and being out there on tour drumming with the Stones either. So
that's true. So maybe
it's more on me than it's on them.
I was about to say, I thought the same thing. Hey, I guess do what you love for as long as you can, right? It'll keep you young, I guess. So.
All right. So before our time comes to an end here, let's talk a little bit about the playoffs.
Yes.
Browns are currently tied with 5 other teams with 6 wins, but they sit in number 8 in the playoff race. These next few weeks are going to be really big.
Yep.
The Browns have seemingly winnable games against Philadelphia and Jacksonville, while Baltimore has Tennessee and Pittsburgh. That's one of the teams. Baltimore is one of the teams they're tied with. The Colts at 6 wins have the Packers and the Titans. And the Raiders have the Chiefs this weekend, which is really going to be a fun game because I saw the other day, Andy Reid is extremely pissed that
the Raiders
after
beat them.
The Raiders, when they won, they did a victory lap around Arrowhead in their team buses. And to have him come out and kind of point that out to the media this week, they're going to light it up Sunday night.
So, yeah, I would say
in Vegas.
In prime time. Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of movement in the next few weeks, and the Browns just need to be sure to take care of their own business here. And, they should be in pretty good, 2 weeks from now, they could be in a really, really strong position.
It's got to take care of our business. I know Philadelphia, they have a solid team. Miles Sanders is back. It's going to present a challenge. He's a great running back. They've been hard luck, but they still have a good team. Going to have to take care of business. Jacksonville, it's a game you got to win, but let's be honest, in the past, Browns, especially 2007, you lost a lot of games that you should have won that year, kept you out of the playoffs. So you got to go 1-0 every week. This week we got to beat Philly at home and then head to Jacksonville and get a couple victories, and then we can see where we are. Hopefully, knock on wood, 8-3 when we're sitting here 2 weeks from now, and then it's going to get fun. It's our job to scoreboard watch. It's their job to take care of business on the football field. So I don't think they're going to be scoreboard watching, but I really like Stefanski. I think he's kept them, especially for as crazy as this offseason and season have been. He's kind of kept everyone focused. So I have faith that they can. I think it's going to be a tough, hard-fought game on Sunday, but they can pull out these next 2 ones. And I think this one will be close. We should go to Jacksonville, take care of business. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about the state of the Browns. And if we're 8-3, we'll have 5 more games to go, and 3 of them would be extremely tough. Baltimore is definitely looking like they're more, teams have kind of figured them out. So hopefully things and hopefully, maybe we can catch them, and we'll just see how it goes. I guess we just keep go 1-0 every week, and that's it.
Right. I like the fact that, all these teams that they're bunched up with are going to start, they're just going to start playing themselves.
Right.
So, some of this can take care of itself if the Browns just do what they're supposed to do. And then I just wanted to look real quick. The third game, the game after Jacksonville, I think that's the Monday night game against
Baltimore, correct?
Baltimore. So I was trying to remember where that came up in the sequence. So, if they can get to, they have to play the Titans first. So the Ravens game comes after that. So so you got Eagles, Jaguars, seemingly easy.
Right.
Titans, Ravens, seemingly difficult.
Right.
Giants, Jets, seemingly
got to win those games. Yeah. If you want to make the playoffs, got to win those. Yeah.
And then you close out with a must-win game to make the playoffs at home against the Steelers, who will be resting Big Ben. Possibly, we'll keep that for another day.
Well, yeah. And I'm not get ahead of ourselves, but the Steelers have rested their players before in that finale, and yeah. So
well, you know what happens if they decide not to play Ben that day at quarterback.
Oh, that is
all right. I wasn't going to bring this up, but let me bring it up. So let's say somehow the Steelers continue to
14-1, 15
out of their ass.
Right.
Let's say they go into that last week. They're 15-0. Have we talked about this before?
No, we haven't. So. No, that's okay.
15-0. They've clinched up where they need to clinch. They're
first round bye.
They can't move. They can't move in the playoff standings. Do you play the starters that day in a chance to go 16-0, or do you bench your starters, knowing that a loss would probably help the Browns get in the playoffs, and by benching your starters, you're putting Mason Rudolph out as your starting quarterback against the Browns? What do you do, Mike Tomlin?
I think before 2007, you would say go for 16-0 because it's history. But I think you saw with the Patriots, I mean, no one cares if they went 16. All that people remember is that they lost to Eli and the helmet catch. So I think you got to look long term. I mean, no one's going to care if they go 16-0 and lose to the Chiefs in the AFC title game. So I think they should sit their players, even though, I mean, let's be honest, Mason Rudolph is a terrible quarterback. And that Thursday night game, they were pretty much just throwing the ball up and hoping for pass interference penalties against the Browns. And I think that's how they scored their one touchdown. They moved the ball down the field. So you'd pretty much be helping the Browns. And I think, let's be honest, that they would never say this out loud, but strategy-wise, they would much rather play the Browns if the Browns were to win that first round game than any of those other teams that we'd be competing with. I think so. That's a personal opinion, because I think they match up much better against us. And let's be honest, they've owned us for 20 years. So I think they sit their guys personally. I think that their goal is to win the Super Bowl, not go 16-0. I personally think they're going to lose before then. They've had several close calls, and I think they'll lose before then. I think if they're 14-1, they're sitting every one, and they've already, because that first round bye, that one seed is so much bigger this year because the second seed's playing on opening weekend. So I think that they sit their guys. That's what I would do. I think the Super Bowl, in Pittsburgh, it's about Super Bowl rings. So if they play Big Ben and something happens to him and they're starting Mason Rudolph in a playoff game, they'll run Tomlin out of town for that anyways. So I would, if even they're 15-0, I'd sit Big Ben and a decent amount of their starters. That's just my opinion.
All right, we'll take the tinfoil hat off here for the moment, and we'll revisit this potentially in a few weeks.
Yeah, well, because if the Steelers keep winning, it's a conversation that'll be in Mason Rudolph and in a probably what'll be a must-win game for the Browns against
in an empty stadium.
In an empty stadium, yeah, which is lucky for him probably because. Yeah, things would get that would be quite. They'd have to put that one in a primetime spot, even though I know that they on purpose didn't want any Brown Steelers game on Thursday night or Sunday or Monday night after the Thursday night debacle last year. But they wouldn't probably have a choice if the NFL likes money more than it's concerned about controversy. So they wouldn't have a choice but to put that one, flex that one to Sunday night.
Let's take a quick look here. We were going to wrap this up, and that reminds me. Let me take one quick look at the schedule. The week that they play the Titans, if the Browns were to somehow get to 8-3, what's the Sunday night game that week? I wonder if that's that. I mean, Browns Titans, you would think that'd be
a huge game. Yeah,
would be a potential Sunday night flex. Denver, Kansas City is a Sunday night game. I know they love having Kansas City, but Denver's not good.
Denver's bad, yeah, and I can't see Denver's heading in the other direction. I wouldn't be surprised.
Let's see what else is going on.
Denver fires Vic Fangio sooner than later. Yeah, so they can be with the interim coach at that point.
You know what? Looking at this right now, the only other game that might be of interest if they wanted to flex would be the Rams at Arizona. I could see them wanting to flex that one.
That would be, especially because the way those teams are headed,
if Tennessee pulls it together, you got 2 8-3 teams fighting for a playoff spot. But yeah, Rams. I haven't looked to see if the Rams or Cardinals are maxed. I'm sure the Cardinals aren't. I don't know if the Rams were already maxed out on their primetime games or not.
It's got to be close, for the Rams.
But that would be a flex target there. Right. And I think because the Browns schedule, other than the Tennessee game, I'm not sure that anything else would be worthy of.
No, since the Ravens are already on Monday night. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not going to flex. They're not going to flex Giants, Jets, Jaguars.
No.
Obviously, they're not flexing this week. It's too late this week, anyways. But they would never go out of Chiefs Raiders.
No, that's especially since in a revenge game. So hopefully the Chiefs take care of business, and all the rest of our opponents can. Our playoff opponents can lose, and God bless Tua. But I always say it's kind of like a pitcher in baseball. The defense is going to make adjustments to you, and can you make adjustments back? So we'll see with Tua. I like him. I'm glad to see him succeeding, but we'll see if it keeps coming as easy to him as those are his words that he thought it would be harder. So I can't imagine that the NFL defenders are going to like that too much. So he might just put himself in some bulletin board material there. So
maybe. All right. Have we said it all?
I think we said enough. I think we did today.
Said it all. So thank you to everyone for listening to another Cleveland Sports Collective podcast. Please comment, like, and share the episode to help us continue to grow our network. I'm Tom. He's Josh. And until next time, stay safe and go Browns.
Go Browns.